welcome to another episode of Aligned Heart. I am Misty Springer, and I am here with my dear friend and colleague, Cheree Sauer. And oh my goodness, we have had a journey together over the last, I think, 10 years as we have navigated being small business owners together, cheering each other on, supporting each other, collaborating together. We run retreats together and do workshops together. And I just absolutely adore Cheree and what she's doing and the work that she's doing in the world. And what has been so inspiring for me is to watch Cheree grow and shift and evolve over the last 10 years into this powerful, masterful coach that she is today. And it's been a journey. It's been a beautiful journey to watch, to witness, and to also be a part of. And it is inspiring to me, and I know her story will be inspiring to all of you. As you know, I like to bring women on occasionally on the podcast and share ordinary women who do extraordinary things. And Cheree is definitely one of those people. And I love hearing the stories of women who sometimes look at themselves and say, yeah, I feel pretty ordinary. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm doing anything extraordinary. And yet, as you step back and take a look from a bird's eye view, it's pretty extraordinary what Cheree has accomplished. And as she tells her story, I know you all will feel the same. And what I love about these conversations is we get to pull out the little clues, the clues that show us how each one of us has the potential to be extraordinary, that this isn't just a Cheree thing or a Misty thing. This is for anybody, that we all have that possibility of extraordinary within us. And hopefully through the story today, you'll hear clues on how you all can access your extraordinary as well. So with that, welcome, Cheree. So glad to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here, Misty. It's a pleasure, and I'm honored to talk with you and everybody listening.
Absolutely. So let's just start. First of all, I would love to hear your story. How did you go from having a career and deciding to move into business on your own? And often the women that I talk with, this is more than just a business. This is a calling that you feel on your heart. So speak to that a little bit and how you discovered your calling and what you're meant to be doing in the world.
Yeah. I've always had just a heart to help people and to serve people. And so my career was in athletic training and sports psychology. And I worked with high performing athletes for 14 years until I had babies. And I was tired of working nights and weekends, and there were zero boundaries. I got a call on Christmas Day, and that was like my breaking point. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep up with both. And so I took a leap of faith and I became a stay-at-home mom. And I thought that it was going to be cupcakes and rainbows and dinner was going to be on the table by 5. And after 4 months, I found myself at the kitchen table bawling my eyes out because I hated my life and I actually resented my kids. And I knew, it always makes me so emotional. I knew that was not who God called me to be. I knew that I wasn't meant to suffer and to hate my life. And I was so stuck in, if I just had a bigger house, life would be better. If my kids just behaved, I would be happier and more peaceful, right? If my husband just did X, Y, Z. And that was a really hard season because I had been a high achiever my whole life. I had come off of this high stress career working 60 hours a week to all of a sudden I'm just at home and I'm just doing the dishes and I'm just taking care of the kids and I can't get them to stop crying, which hit all of my failure buttons. And my nervous system was just in this constant state of fight or flight. And it was in that moment at the kitchen table that I realized, like, there has to be something different. There has to be something better. I know that God promises something different. And so that really led me down to a path of just self-care and a self-awareness of learning, why do I feel this way? Why am I reacting this way? Like, I don't want to behave this way with my children, screaming at them all the time and being mad and angry at them. Like, they're just these little toddlers, right? But I felt like everything they did was intentionally pushing my buttons. And hindsight 2020, I realized that's not true, right? And so that really led me down this path of self-discovery of what's happening internally in my body, and how do I make shifts to that. Um, and I became super passionate about encouraging moms to take care of themselves so they could take care of their families better. I started a gift box company called Heartfelt Mamas, and it was to support moms in different stages of motherhood. And I really just wanted them to understand and grasp how important it was for them to take care of themselves so that they could take care of their families better. And that was really like my mission. It was a much bigger than just a product-based company. But after 3 years, I started to feel burnt out again. I wasn't making the money that I wanted. I didn't know how to be present for my family and productive and profitable in my business at the same time. And I felt that, but I also had that call of like, I felt like entrepreneurship was for me. I remember when I was young, my dad was a business owner, and he would always talk about like, I want to bring you in, I want you to, work on the company, and he just, or here's snow cones, you can go sell snow cones, and just like put that entrepreneur spirit in me. Um, and my husband is actually the one when I was a stay-at-home mom who really encouraged me to start listening to the Christy Wright podcast, which podcasting was very new at the time. And she was talking about being a business owner and being a mom. And I just was so intrigued by it. And so he's really the one that kind of planted that seed within me. And it actually started even before the gift box company. Um, it started with Norwex. I was a Norwex consultant, and I loved that company. I thought, man, I'm going to do this forever. And again, like I kind of got burnt out with it. I kind of got bored with it. And so I've noticed this cycle that I went through where I would be content with something for a little while, and then I'd kind of get burnt out and lose interest. And it just kept happening. And I thought, man, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel like I'm like constantly chasing this success, but never actually seeing what I want, right? I was the goal setter. I got a master's degree. I got straight A's. Like I made the varsity soccer team and all the areas I was successful, but business is where I like struggled the most. So that's kind of my story. And then really like after the gift box company, one of the things that really pushed me to go more into coaching is I realized that I was putting these products and services in a box, and I was giving them to moms, massages, facials, pedicures, manicures, and they weren't cashing them in. And I thought, what in the world? Like, if somebody gave me a free massage, I'm like out the door, right? I'm finding a babysitter. But for a lot of these moms, they felt guilty for asking for help for somebody to come watch their kids so they could go take a minute, right? They felt guilty for taking care of themselves because they felt like that meant that they weren't taking care of their families, when the exact opposite is true. And so I realized at that point it was really a mindset issue, right? It was a belief issue, a worthiness issue. And I realized like I wanted to have a bigger impact than just giving a product and a service to a mom, because that wasn't getting to the root of the issue. It was just a symptom. And so that's when I really kind of transitioned into coaching. Coaching mompreneurs is kind of where I started. And then after a couple of years of that, I realized that my real gift is in helping the business owners who are successful. They've had success in their business. They're usually 2, 3 years plus into business, and they want to burn their business down because it's taken over their life. And this thing that they started for financial freedom and time freedom is now sucking the joy and the life out of them. And that's really my sweet spot. And so I've been doing that for, gosh, 5 years, and I never get bored of it.
Hmm. Yeah, I love this. And I'm curious, as you talked, like there was this pattern that you noticed. First of all, that I love that self-awareness was almost like the turning point,
Yeah.
where it went from I I feel like a mom that's out of control and not acting in the way that I want, to that self-reflection. It almost feels like that was a pivot point in your
Yeah.
life.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, where at that moment, that's the power of awareness, I believe, and that I think you're highlighting such a critical piece that we often miss because we feel like I just need to be doing more, when actually it was the pause and it was the self reflection and it was the going inward that actually created the pivot that you needed at that time.
Yeah.
And that was, you and I both believe that those moments of stillness where God can bring that awareness into our heart and into our mind so that we can take a different direction and a shift. But I just wanted to highlight that it was such a beautiful part of your story that really created a pivot that perhaps if you had never paused, you might still be on that same hamster wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I remember like so clearly hearing like, I was praying like I just want to be more peaceful. I want joy, I want these things. And I kept thinking if I had more money, if I had these things, then I would feel a certain way. And if my kids behaved, I'd be more joyful. And I remember God's like so clearly like your kids are not the problem. Your house is not the problem. Your husband is not the problem. You're the problem, right? And not from a like you're a broken problem, but like this is an internal issue. This is a you issue. This is not about all the external things. This is about the internal things that are going on inside of you. And that was my like wake up call of like, oh, I just had never even realized that because I learned to stuff emotions down, stuff pain down, and to trudge on like everything was fine. And I always just was, seeking the positive, seeking the fun, and I avoided pain at all costs until it started to cost me my mental health and my relationships with the people around me. So.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that sometimes it does take the pain becoming so intense that we've looked at all the places for the answer, and the only place left that we haven't looked is inside.
Yeah.
And it sounds like in that moment it was God, not from a place of, like you said, brokenness, but just from a place of where are you shining your light? Like let's put your attention where it needs to be, because that's really what's going to create the change. And then the other thing that I think is so fascinating about your story is you mentioned like all of these quote unquote failures. Like I couldn't make it work. I couldn't make it work. I got bored, or it just wasn't producing what I wanted it to produce. And I'm curious, how did each one of those quote unquote failures or disappointments actually lead you to where you're at today and help you develop the sweet spot, the skills that you have to do what you're doing right now that feels so meaningful and purposeful?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, I think with the gift boxes, especially, I had to learn. I knew entrepreneurship for me. I knew business ownership was for me, even if it was hard, even if I wasn't making the money. Like I knew that in my heart. And I remember when I started Heartfelt Mamas, the gift boxes, I remember God giving me this vision of like an oak tree and just these roots like going really wide and really deep. And the words like this is this is bigger than gift boxes. This is impact that's going to have generational impact on communities, on families. And that was really my mission. And so then when I felt like I wasn't seeing the money and the success in it, I was questioning, like, okay, maybe this really wasn't like what God intended, right? Like I had this vision for where, how much money the big gift boxes were going to bring in. Um, but it wasn't Heartfelt Mamas itself that message came through. That message was for me and the impact that I was going to have. And so I had to, and so when it came to the point where I had the gift box company for 3 years, it got to the point where I was either going to have to, in order to grow and scale it, I was going to have to outsource it to warehouses and things like that. And I didn't want to do that. It wasn't really about the money for me or packing a box and shipping it off. I wanted to see the transformation. And so it was kind of this wake up call of I have to be willing to release this thing, right, that I thought was the thing, in order to move into what God really has for me. And that was really hard. There was a mastermind that I was hosting at the time, and Tara Weir, who you know actually, I was just in this like place of I thought that I could do coaching and the gift boxes at the same time, because my at the time my target market was moms. And it got to a point where I was like, I can't invest energy in both. Like, where my energy and my time is getting split, and I have to choose one or the other. But there were so many people that believed in me and invested financial money into getting the gift box company started that it was really hard for me. And she said, Cheree, I think you know what you need to do. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, right. Like, I knew it internally, but there was all this noise saying for all the reasons that I shouldn't. And, um, and that, failure, if you will, of that gift box company, I don't look at it as a failure at all. Like, yes, maybe I didn't make the money that I wanted, but it was just one step in the process. It was just a part of the process, right? To help me understand what did I want and what didn't I want. Um, so I think that's the biggest one with that. I'm trying to think the other. I don't know. I don't consider failures. This is one. I for a long time believed I was bad at sales, and it felt hard. Like discovery calls felt. I loved like helping people in the discovery call, but when it came to like the sales, like let's talk money, let's overcome objections, I hated that. I actually started looking into hiring like a sales team to go out and do my sales because I didn't feel like I was good at it. And and again, I got to this point where I was frustrated. Like most of our money in the company had dried up. Like clients were saying no. And I got to a point where I was like, I can't take another no. If I get another no, like I don't think I can continue on in business. This is just 2 years ago, right? And I've been in business for 10 years. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years because I had had so many rejections along the way and so many no's that it felt personal. It felt like a personal rejection of me. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't put another offer out. I can't do another thing. I can't get another no, or I'm not going to survive this. Like it felt that intense to me. And so again, it was an opportunity to look internal and go, okay, what's really going on here? Like, why do I keep hitting the same wall over and over? And it's really just because I had a deep fear of rejection because when I was in third, fourth grade, there were a group of us girls, and I was the only one that didn't get invited to the birthday party. And her parents lived in a nicer neighborhood. They lived in a bigger house, right? I took that to mean I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough to be around those people. And so I spent the rest of my life trying to prove myself through achievement and success. And that was my safety. And so if I wasn't achieving, then I wasn't good enough. And so it kept me in this state of hustle. And even though like self-care, right, that was a huge part of my routine, there was still something internally in me that I was chasing this achievement for my worthiness. And really, Misty, like that's a tribute to you and the work that you do through retreats and through, your program that I went through. Um, Part of that like highlighted that, right? It brought it out because I had started to learn how to do breath work. And in that breath work session, I like had this realization like, wow, I have this deep fear of rejection. It's really not about sales. It's about it feeling like a personal rejection of me. So, um, my story is not one of quick growth by any means. My story is one of persistence. And I look around 10 years ago of people who started businesses or started coaching and they die off after 3 or 5 years. But for me, it's like, and I know this is for you too, Missy, it's such a deep calling in my heart. And I have the support of my husband, thank goodness. That like, I just am not willing to quit. There have been many moments where I was like, oh, maybe I just throw the towel in. Maybe this isn't for me. Many moments where I have come to that. So and yet I always come back to, no, this is where I'm meant to be. It's maybe not happening as quick as I want, but it's no longer about the achievement for my worthiness. It's about the impact that it can have on other people.
So beautiful, so powerful. And again, what feels so powerful about this part of your story is, again, it was the stillness, the awareness that created the pivot. It
Yeah.
was the seeing the brick wall that you were running into. You know, you and I have had this conversation before about invisible brick walls, and that when sometimes when you're moving towards something, particularly something that feels close to your heart, like something that feels like it's your calling, something that you're meant to do, we feel this pull on our heart and we start to move forward, and then we bump up against this invisible brick wall, and it feels frustrating and it feels discouraging and there's pain there, right? But that pain is the only way we know we're running up against something that's invisible. If we can't see it, the only way it can come into our awareness is if we run into it and our nose hurts and our head hurts and we're frustrated, right? That pain is an opportunity to pause and pay attention inside now, PAIN. So I love that your story highlights this yet again, right? Bumping into that invisible brick wall, it comes, you feel the pain, you pause, you get still, and then the awareness comes, and that's when the pivot happens. Um, and I think that's just a really powerful reminder for all of us that are going through frustration or disappointment. And I love that you clarified that they're not failures, because I don't think everybody else could see my air quotes.
Yeah.
But that it's not, they are stepping stones. And the contrast creates clarity. No, this is not what I want. And so now I have a little bit more clear of a picture of what I do want. And as I move closer to what I do want, it's like I feel like God is constantly raining down, constantly giving us what we want, but our clarity on what we want has to get more into focus.
Mm.
Um, so the more clear we are, the more that can just rain down in abundance on us. So I love that. You also mentioned the noise in your head. And as entrepreneurs, we all have that. It doesn't matter if you're trying to improve your health or you're trying to grow a business or you're trying to improve a relationship. Anytime we start to move towards something, a goal that we have in mind, that call that you feel on your heart, that's what we talk about as the first voice. That first voice like pulls us forward. And as soon as we start to move forward, all the noise comes up. So I would love to hear um, your story of how did you overcome the noise? Because,
Mm.
like you said, your story is not a story of quick success, it's a story of persistence. And persistence, I think, is powerful because that means you're bumping up against the noise over and over and over again, and you have to tap into something deeper to keep going. So,
Yeah.
how did you do that? How did you address the noise, hear the noise, see the noise differently, or move through the noise?
Yeah, probably my number one go-to anytime I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not supposed to be coaching. Maybe I need to go get a full-time job, right? I always just go by journal, and that's how I talk to God is journaling. And I will just always like check back in, like, okay, God, is like, do I need to do something different? Do I need to pivot? I have, there was a period where I applied for over 20 different jobs. At one point, I felt called to go into ministry. And I think you and I have talked, had this conversation, and I was like, how, like, if I go into ministry, that means I'm not coaching. And that felt really painful for me. And at the same time, I was like, okay, like, I'm just going to be obedient, right? And I'm gonna follow the call. And I actually applied for um, a job within a like nonprofit organization, and I had a call with the guy, and it wasn't an interview; it was just kind of a pre-call. And he said, "Cheree, I think your ministry is your coaching." And I was like, "Oh, whoa, that's gonna make me emotional because." I felt like it had to be these like two different things. And just those words solidified in me, right? I had been praying and praying and praying and thinking, like, okay, like you're calling me into something totally different, right? And I had a vision of what that meant, ministry wise. And God had something different, and He answered that prayer through me just taking the step, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna do what like I know what to do, right? Like ministry to me is like going into something really specific, like a nonprofit organization. And I needed those words to reaffirm that in me. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm getting so emotional. Um, but that like for me, that's how I tune out the noise is I just keep praying. And I feel like sometimes we can feel like God is silent. And oh my goodness, I don't know why I'm so emotional today. Um, and in those moments, like we can't always see what God is doing in the background, right? Um, and how He's working out for us, and He's answering prayers for us as we go. And so all we can do is just take baby steps and actions for the direction that we think we're going to go. And if that's not the direction, like God's gonna like something's gonna happen and He's gonna pull us back in alignment, right? I'm trying to think of the verse. It's one of my favorite verses, and I can't remember what verse it is because I'm terrible at memorizing. But it's uh, like we know the desires that God knows the desires of our hearts, but He directs our steps, right? And and so there have been so many times where I've just wanted to quit, and God like pulls me back, right? Or I think I'm supposed to go in a different direction. And yeah, I applied to 20 different jobs and not a single interview for any of them. And so that was my like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm just going to stay in this. I'm going to trust, even though I'm not seeing, the financial return that I need for a family. I'm going to trust that this is where I need to go. And the biggest thing for tuning out that noise too is I love the journaling process that you teach of the feeling, thinking, believing, right? Like because uh, what is the goal? Like, yes, there's a financial goal, but how is that actually going to make you feel? And who is the person? How is she thinking, feeling, believing once she's reached that and going to that has been like a major game changer for me. And now something like I teach my clients as well because I knew what I wanted, right? I saw this vision for myself and yet I couldn't figure out how to get there. And that was so frustrating to me. Like I can see it, I feel it, like I know it's for me, and I don't know how to get there. And so it's tapping into that future self now before you see the results. And that has probably been like the most calming for my nervous system. The other thing that really helps me with a noise is breath work. Like your breath work sessions. Seriously, like even just this morning, I did one. Anytime I feel resistance or I have a goal, but all the noise starts to come in, that to me is time to be still and to get quiet and to do some breath work because that's the only way I can get the noise out of my head and create that safety within my body.
I love it. I love it. And I can totally relate, especially as you mentioned, being a high achiever, being someone who is very action oriented, goal oriented. How have you found what has stillness done for you? And maybe what surprises have you found in stillness that you weren't expecting?
Oh gosh, that's such a good. Okay. So what I mentioned at the kitchen table, bawling my eyes out, right around that time, we had I think we had a yard sale, and my in-laws brought over some books, and one of the books was Too Busy Not to Pray. And in it, he had this journaling method that was called Acts. And at the time, like sitting down to be still to pray, I was like, pray on the go, pray in the shower, right? But like sitting down to pray was really hard for me. Being still was extremely hard for me. It felt so uncomfortable in my body. Journaling, I was like, this is such a waste of time, right? But I just knew that I needed something different. And so I started doing this journaling method. And that's the first thing that created like stillness within me. And that was so powerful because it helped me take all of these thoughts and noise and stuff in my head and get it down on paper. Um, and it helped me create stillness because I didn't know how to be still. Like it was still active, but it was like an active stillness, right? And so that was like kind of the first step for me. And then as over the years, like I got better at just being still and praying. And I still journal because I have ADHD, my brain goes on a million different miles. And so writing stuff down like helps keep me focused. Um, and even like visualization, I teach visualization. I taught athletes visualization. Visualization is actually really hard for me. It's hard for me to get my brain to focus. And so I think that's what I love about breath work. Um, and even when I first started breath work with you, it felt very, that level of stillness felt really uncomfortable to me. Like pain in my body, like I didn't like it at first. It felt very uncomfortable, but I'm the person like if something feels uncomfortable, I know that that's the direction I need to go, because I know that that's my path to growth, right? I don't want to stay in my comfort zone. Like comfort zone is where dreams go to die. So I was like, I know that like I need to do this. And so I just committed to doing it, right? First with you. And then once our sessions were done, I just listened to it over and over. And um that creates a stillness in like a totally different way. And it still even takes me probably about 10 to 15 minutes to get my brain to be quiet. And then like the last 10 minutes, I finally can just zone out. And then and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, that felt amazing, right? Like my body feels relaxed. My brain feels relaxed. I usually have just more energy to get stuff done. And so I can't remember what your original question was, but stillness. So that's kind of my path, what the path has looked like for me for stillness. For anybody that's listening to this, I'll just say if stillness is hard for you, um, stillness is what you need.
I would concur with that. I would say that the only reason that I started on my path of stillness was a craving. Like my body craved the stillness. It wasn't that I felt like I was doing it well. It wasn't even that I felt like I knew how to do it. I mean, literally, I started meditating because I had digestive issues and I knew that I needed to calm down I needed to bring the cortisol levels down in my body. That was why I started meditating. But once I started, there was literally a physical craving in my body for more. And
Yeah.
that you know, you may or may not experience that same thing, but it is that there is a knowing of some sort on some level. I've spoken to so many women since who have just known on some level that I need more of this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense physically or even mentally, but it's like your body, your heart knows, like,
Yeah.
I need
Well,
more of this.
we're in such a society of hurry and rush, and I lived my whole life like that. And I even remember, like I will consciously be like, no, I'm going to slow down my walk, right? Because I'm like super fast paced. I'm like, I need to slow down my walk. I need to slow down my talking, right? Like it's a conscious effort that I have to make. And so, breath work is just like one of those beautiful things in my life that has helped me create that safety within stillness. And same way, like after the more I did it, the more I craved it. I was like, oh, I like anytime I feel anxiety or resistance or anything in my body, I'm like, I need to do breath work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so now, because I've experienced it, right, I know like this is the feeling I want, and I need to get back to that. And so even just in the last 2 years, my anxiety levels have gone down, my stress levels have gone down, and they still get back up, right? They kind of spike, and then I know that it's time to do some more breath work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's been just such a gift in my life. And you know this, Misty, like I was very resistant to breath work. It didn't feel safe, not just from a stillness standpoint, but from like a spiritual standpoint. It felt unsafe to me to do breath work and like certain types of breath work. And but I trusted you and I know your heart, and your beliefs. And so that's what created like safety for me within it. Otherwise, I don't think I ever probably would have done breath work,
Hmm.
honestly.
Hmm.
So
And how have you found a connection to God, or what has surprised you about answers you've received through stillness?
yeah. Oh gosh. I think so. Breath work is a little bit different for me as far as like, and I feel like I get more business ideas through breath work, and maybe that's because my intention when I go into it versus like when I journal and I pray and I just get really quiet and still and I'm just listening for an answer from God. That's a very different experience for me. And so I usually do both. But sometimes I don't have time for both. And so it just kind of depends on like what am I looking for? What am I needing out of this? Um, I think too, I sometimes can get frustrated when I'm still and I'm waiting for an answer from God and I'm not getting an answer and I don't hear anything. And I used to be really frustrated by that, but I've learned that the answer will come. Like eventually God's going to provide the things that I need. And so I've just had to get myself to a place of being calm and peaceful with that instead of being frustrated that like, you're not giving me the answers, God. Um, but yeah, so those are, I don't know, they're just different experiences for me, and maybe it's because of the intention I go in with it. But I do have to make sure for me, like journaling and prayer is like one of my daily staples. Especially in the morning because it just calms my body down. It gets me into a state of peace instead of hustle. One of the other things I did, and I will have clients do this sometimes that I think it was so powerful for me. And one of the best ways that I've learned to hear from God is, um, anytime I'm feeling, like not worthy or I'm frustrated or I'm wondering, like, God, is this for me? I will just ask God, like, God, who do you say I am? And I'll just wait. And then, like, all of the words, right, will just flood. And it's like, you are worthy, you are loved, you are all of these things. And so I will sometimes, especially women, I will have go through that exercise if they're really struggling with that and like just ask God how he sees you and then be still and just wait for the answers and write down everything that comes because that is to me like one of the most powerful things because again the noise the doubt all the things can come in and so anytime I'm feeling that I go wait a minute like God how do you see me and that just reaffirms who I am and helps me to continue forward even when it's hard.
Yeah, I think that that's one of those critical tools for persistence. Like that tuning into the first voice. I talk about that a lot, that the only way that we move forward is when we turn the volume up on the first voice and we turn the volume down on the second voice. Because the second voice is what debilitates us, it confuses us, it keeps us stuck, it keeps us safe and protected and in our comfort zone, right? It's all that protective, those protective voices that say don't take any steps forward, don't move forward. But it's the first voice that sees the possibility, the potentiality, the creation that we are designed to create, the divine potential within each of us. That is when we can turn the volume up on that noise, when we can move from that energy, that's when we turn something that's ordinary into something that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that I think is you've just highlighted so beautifully that process. And it is just a little bit at a time, right? It's layer upon layer. The person you are today is someone who is very different than the person who was sitting at the table, you know, with little ones at home saying, hate my life, right? But the process that you went through to get to where you are today is the same, right?
Yeah.
Just in the way, it's like God meeting you where you're at, in the way that you could hear it at the moment.
Yeah.
At the kitchen table, it was a book
Yeah. Yeah.
that spoke to you, right? And each time that call has been, come back home to yourself.
Yeah.
Come back to where I can talk to you and tell you who you truly are. Because when you know who you truly are, that's what moves you through the noise.
Yeah.
That's the pull forward, not the force, right? It's the power that we all have within us, and it's just about tapping into and plugging into that power. And I believe that's what that future self visualization or journaling does as well.
Yeah.
We're literally just writing down the potential that is already within us. So I love that you highlighted that. You mentioned something in our conversation before we hit record that I thought was really powerful. We were talking about, do you see yourself as ordinary or extraordinary? And I would love for you to tell us your answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah. When I read that on your paper, I was like, ooh, it's funny because my initial response was to be like, oh, I'm extraordinary, right? But then it goes, oh, that's too much. Like, no, I'm just ordinary. And at the same time, I'm like, I don't feel extraordinary. I do just feel like an ordinary person that's taking steps. So that's a weird thing, how your brain I'm like, no, I want to say I'm extraordinary, right? And yet that feels boastful. It feels unsafe. It feels like, no, I'm not really extraordinary. I'm just an ordinary person. And I am just an ordinary person, right? That has taken steps to do extraordinary things. And even when I say that, like extraordinary things, like comparison, here's where this comes in, right? If I compare myself to somebody else, like I'm a speaker, I have big goals for that. And if I look at somebody else who's, getting paid 50K to go speak on stages, well, of course I don't feel extraordinary compared to them. And so I think that comparison piece and also that, what's the word? It's not humble, right? Like that feels boastful if I were to say that. And so it's like, yeah, I'm extraordinary. And then it goes, no, 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 you're not actually extraordinary. So that's kind of what my brain went through when I read that question, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's every single one of us because I talked with people who are in the eyes of the world doing extraordinary things, and anybody would look at them and say, "Wow, you're extraordinary." And you ask them the same question, and it's the same answer. No, I don't feel extraordinary.
Yeah.
But what I loved when you said in the conversation that we had, I'm an ordinary person practicing being extraordinary. Tell me what feels more true about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I think again, it just comes down to the practices, right? The visualization, the journaling, um, doing the things of this vision that I have of myself of this is who I am if I'm being extraordinary. Um, and how do I step into her on a daily basis, even if my results aren't showing that right now? Um, yeah, I think that's what that comes down to is it's just it's the daily actions. And actually, when I was starting my podcast, I had asked people to ask questions, and one of the questions that they wanted to hear was, um, how do you get like so my podcast is Millionaire in the Making, um, and these people who have this desire, right? Like they have this desire, and like how do you overcome other people's doubts when you say I want to be a millionaire, and they look at you and they go, yeah, right, like you can't do that, right? Like how do you overcome those doubts and the noise from other people when you have this big, huge, massive goal on your heart, and yet the people around you may not support that or see that for you. And again, I think it just has to come down to like you have to make the choice to put yourself in that place of who are you? Like what are you thinking, believing, feeling once you've gotten there? Because those people's voices aren't going to matter, right? If you put yourself in that place and you have that belief deeply ingrained in you, it doesn't matter what other people think or believe. That's you're instilling that in yourself, and it's the daily actions. And I tell clients this all the time, and this is me too, right? Like we want to go to We want to go to the action. We want to go to the doing. And the most important part is the being, right? Like who are you being once you get to that level? Because if you haven't stepped into that identity and you don't have that belief about yourself, it doesn't matter what actions or strategy you do along the way. You're going to keep self-sabotaging. And I'm in the middle of that process right now. Like I'm not at $1 million, but I believe it in my heart, and my son keeps saying like, Mom, you keep saying this. And I'm like, and I believe it. I 100%
Mhm.
believe it. I just haven't seen the results yet, and that's okay. They're going to come.
Mhm.
Um, and that has come through doing the internal work and the identity work and the belief work, not from the strategy and the action. The action is taking time to be still and doing that work over the funnels and all the other things that people tell us. I love Elise Archer always says how does she say it? Your income will never supersede your identity or supersede your worth. And I'm like, oh, that's 100% true. I've experienced that in my own life in 20 years of being an entrepreneur, and I see clients experience it. And it's one of the hardest things to get people to stop and do is that belief identity work because it
Mhm.
feels uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And
It feels
so,
uncomfortable, and sometimes it feels insignificant, right?
yeah.
It feels like I could be doing something so much more impactful. And yet, you and I both know our energy is what creates everything around us. And that energy is by stepping into the vision of who God sees us becoming, right? And that you highlight such a beautiful um, process where I believe God places this vision on our heart. You had this vision. You have the vision before you have the results,
Yeah.
right? But that's every time we spiritually create anything in our life first. We have the vision, God places it on our heart, and then the process is becoming that. And I think your story highlights that so beautifully because every step that you took, even the disappointing ones, even the ones that felt frustrating, even the ones that are like, wait, I'm running up against this brick wall. This is not the way that I was supposed to go. What? Right? Even those were all stepping stones, but all of those stepping stones were you becoming the person that you need to be to have this desire. And that, I think sometimes this who am I being can kind of feel like a Pinterest quote.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of a buzzword out there, at least in the personal development world. Like it's not my to-do list, it's my to-be list. But I think that's something that can feel really elusive. Like, what
Mhm.
does that mean? How do I practice being something different?
Yeah.
And I think your practices, you've highlighted that so well in our podcast today. Sitting down, God, how do you see me? And being still and listening, getting quiet and allowing your nervous system to relax when you feel anxious, letting your body and your heart know it's okay to grow. And it's the journaling, it's asking the questions, God, what next? What is next for me? I know that I'm running up against this frustration right now, but I also hear the call of my first voice and I can't deny that. And so if this is not the way, then what is the way? And layer by layer, step by step, it's practicing becoming who you are designed to be. And I know that God often, he always answers our true desire. And sometimes our true desire is not the $1 million,
Yeah.
right? It's what will the $1 million do for me? Well, I'll feel successful. I'll feel certain. I'll feel confident. I'll trust that I'm on the right path. And so God is going to sometimes give us the $1 million, and sometimes He's going to be like, you know what? We're going to hold off on the $1 million because you're going to learn how to be confident, feel successful, and certain without the $1 million. And that's going to be a whole lot more impactful than if I just gave you the $1 million.
Yeah. Oh, that is so true. Yeah, and that's just it too. Like, and I could tell you, I work with business owners who are 1 million, 2 million plus in company revenue, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you've made it," right? And they still have the same fears and scarcity mindset. And it does not matter how much money you have, that's not going to help you feel successful, right? And it's not going to help you feel fulfilled. It's not about the money. And yet we think it is. And so that's been one of the most powerful things for me, right? Is like, how do you tap into that peace, that calm, that safety, that certainty right now? Um, and that was really hard, like you said, like really elusive. Like how do I do that? How do I get myself to do that when I don't have it yet, right? And that's part of the process. That's part of this stuff, the journaling and the visualization and the breath work and all of it helps with that. And yet it's money is not the answer. Success is not the answer. And we see this with businesses who are very successful and they look around and their relationships are failing, their health is failing, right? And they're not fulfilled. And they thought that, once I got to this level, that was going to help them feel a certain way, and it's not true. And I think that's the success lie, right? I think that's the what people are chasing, and then they get there and they go, "Oh crap, this actually really kind of sucks and I don't actually enjoy this." And so how do you like pull back from that? Um, it's, yeah, no amount of money is going to make you feel fulfilled or successful or happy. Like that has to come before.
Mhm. And I also know that, especially if we're following a call on our heart, God is not going to answer the call with a false positive, right? I'm going
Mm.
to just give you a bunch of money and give you a false sense of identity and security and peace. Like, no, he's gonna give it to us in the real way, which often feels a little painful along the way, truth be
Yeah,
told.
yeah, 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 100%.
Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I would love to hear as we wrap things up, if you were to give an insight, a thought, something to a woman out there who is listening, who feels a call on her heart, but might be experiencing some of those brick walls or frustrations. What is one piece of advice you would give to her?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I would say pay attention inside now, right? Like I think I love that saying because it's so simple and it's literally the answer. If something feels painful or it feels hard, you know that you have this vision, you feel the call, and yet you feel like you just keep running up to the same thing. Like I always say, God will test you, right? God will, if you ask to have more peace in your life or more patience, guess what? He's going to put you in situations that are going to force you to have patience, like being in the grocery store line and picking the slowest line, right? Like that was me. If you're asking for something, he's going to keep putting you back there until you've learned the lesson. And so if you keep hitting that same pain, you haven't learned the lesson yet. You haven't done the work yet to identify what's the root cause, right? And this is the visual I like to give. And Misty, I know you talk about this too, is you can say affirmations, right, till you're blue in the face, but it's like a weed. You can pull up the weed from the surface, but it's going to grow back. You have to dig out the root, right? You have to identify where is that original belief coming from, because if you're having to tell yourself an affirmation, there's a reason that you don't believe it, right? And so what is that? Identify what the root is. That's where the pain takes you, is to identify that root. Then when you dig up that root, then you can put better soil in there and you can grow a flower or grass or whatever it is, right? Then the affirmations and the other things become powerful. But if you just avoid the pain like I did for 30 some years, eventually it's going to boil out in some sort of way that you don't like, mentally, physically, emotionally, in your relationships. So don't ignore the pain. Ask why. Like when I was having a hard time putting out an offer, I had to go, why? Why is this so hard for me? Right? It wasn't until I asked that question of why is this so hard and so painful that then I was able to identify the root and rewrite the story of no, I am worthy to be in rooms. I am worthy to make money. I am worthy. I don't have to prove my worth through achievement. But it wasn't until I was willing to look at the pain that I was able to identify the root and rewrite the story.
Mm, I love that. Love it, love it. Well, Cheree, you are doing amazing things in the world. Your work is influencing so many, including those that are watching and cheering you on. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your heart with all of us. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you so much, Misty. Thank you to everybody listening. And I would love to connect with anybody. I always love connecting with people. If you heard something in my story, please reach out. And I'm happy to just touch base and share and help in any way I can.
Yeah. And how can they best get a hold of you? What would
Yeah,
be the best way to connect with you?
Facebook is where I'm most present. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, but Facebook is where you are most likely to reach me the quickest at Cheree Sauer or at Success Without Sacrifice. But at Cheree
Perfect.
Sauer is the best because that's my personal profile and it's the one I see the messages on the most. So yeah.
Good. And we'll make sure we'll include all the links so that you can connect with Cheree. She is a masterful coach and, like I said, runs incredible retreats. She's a speaker. She has so much to share in her story and her personal experience. And connect with her. She's incredible. So thanks, Cheree.
Thank you, Misty.